Okay, we're back in the middle of the greenhouse and we're going to address the confusing questions that people have about all the different types of containers out there on the market for sale, and people have been planting things all summer long. Now what do I do? Are they winter hardy? Can I put them outside? Can they stay outside if I have some winter hardy plants in them? So we're going to talk a little bit about all the different types of pots that you might have, and what you can keep outside, what you can't keep outside, and let's talk a little bit about all of these.
Yep, the first one is your glazed or your ceramic pots. Those are a definite pot that's going to need to come inside. Don't want to leave those outside. They're real easy to succumb to the elements.
Right.
They also, if you have soil in there, the soil is going to have a different type of porosity. So it's going to try to either expand or contract, which could push out the bottom or the sides of the container. That
is what also happens here. You can see this clay pot. I chose this one because this is something that we've kept outside in our house, and I tried to take a little bit of the soil out, but this is what happens when it does. It expands and it contracts, and that soil actually has caused the pot to crack.
Yes. And then you also have materials like the terracotta, the hypertufa, that's got a lot of pore space within the material itself.
Right.
So hypertufas are becoming really, really popular, and one of the major components is peat moss.
Right.
Well, peat moss has got a great water holding capacity, which is a great thing during the season.
Right.
Not so great during
the
winter, because a lot of that peat moss that's in here, say you have a pocket that's exposed, if that pocket gets moist and then expands and contracts, it can chip away or create small lines or small hairline fractures in your hypertufa that'll be exacerbated throughout the year.
So that's something, if you really enjoy doing them, you don't mind what's going to happen. Sometimes you like the look when you leave it outside, but they are fairly inexpensive. It might be something that you might redo every year.
Yep. And just like what we said right there, this is something that you could redo every year or every 2 to 3 years. Normally they'll last 2 to 3 seasons if you let them outside.
Right.
This hens and chicks is a hardy plant.
Right.
So you got a couple options. One option is you could actually lift the plant out
and put it in the ground.
Put it right into the ground, tamp it down to make sure there's no air space. And then what's good about that is when you dig it up in the spring, maybe you only want to dig up a small portion of this.
Exactly.
And then you've got, 3, 4 other sections that you can give to friends. If you do leave plastic outside, because plastic isn't going to break like your clays or your ceramic pots, but one thing that happens with plastic is you see a huge amount of degradation.
Right.
So this would be a pot that wasn't left outside, and this would be one that's been exposed to UV radiation for well over a year.
Right, and I know people will pick it up in the summertime or pick it up in the spring, and it will basically crumble in your hand.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So plastics, although they can make it outside, and that's what a lot of people do, say for instance you were doing some winter displays in pots. A lot of times people will use large plastic pots.
Okay. Let's look at this one here. This is a plant that we actually are storing for the winter. This one is a styrofoam pot. A lot of people like to keep those outside because they're lightweight. They're not so afraid of that, but one thing to remember is over time, if you keep those outside, you're going to lose the lifetime on that container. So it may not last as long if you bring it inside, like into your garage again, as you would if you left it outside to the elements all winter long.
And if you do, for some reason, forget to bring in one of your terracotta pots and they end up chipping or breaking, you can actually use those for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
And one thing you want to do is make sure you bring some eyeglasses, some protective eyewear. And if you're going to be breaking this terracotta up, I make sure that I put it inside a bag. That way the chips don't go everywhere.
Okay.
So I've got my safety glasses on, I've got the terracotta within the bag itself, and then I'll take just a hammer and start smashing the pot into smaller pieces.
And you can even do that with this type of pot. If this becomes cracked, what we often do is a lot of people enjoy these types of pottery because they use them and they press them into their hypertufas.
Correct.
They use them for decorative things. So definitely something that you can redo. That one that's cracked, don't throw it away. What we're going to show you sometime this spring is another video on what you can do with your pots that are still intact but have some cracks in them.
Yep, and then based on the size of the chips that you're going to have, you can use them for a variety of purposes. So you might be able to get away with using some of your larger pieces as a mosaic.
Right.
Maybe you want to paint them, or you could add them into your hypertufa. And then some of the real small, fine pieces are a great top dressing for your succulent containers and your bonsais.
Okay, and we use the larger shards. We sometimes put them over the top of the holes in our pots to stop the soil from falling out of the pots, and it adds a good thing for the drainage. So I think we're good. Anybody have any questions about the pots that you have? we can always take calls at the greenhouse. And thanks for watching. We'll be back with more.